Welcome to my tutorial on my dialog editor. This is the project. This is what we will get up to. We will be making this simple text visual novel. Well, not visual, but text-based thing. It has string, it has inputs with code, it's non-linear. So let's get to it. So to start, we go to GitHub, or I'm going to show you how to get both GitHub and itch.io. So if I search Dialog editor, I will put a link to both this and the itch.io in the description. So if we go to recently updated, mine should be the most recent. So we go to it, we can download the release, or we can go to itch.io. I have the link from the description of the video, so I can copy it. We can go to it, we can download. This is simpler. It doesn't have all the extra stuff the GitHub file does, so I download it. This is what the GitHub file looks for. GitHub file repository looks like. It just got the dialog editor and it's got the README. So that is it. It's not that hard. I'm going to start a new project though. So now that we've downloaded it from itch.io, let me delete these. These are from a previous recording. So we can extract it. Let's remove the one. Extract. Okay, so we can copy the folder. Whoops, no, not the name. Copy it. So we create Open Godot 4.5. That is the version this is supposed to use. So we create it, we do dialog, edit, dialog, browse for a space in where you keep your projects. Dialog tutorial 2. There. So it can be any render. The renderer doesn't matter. The Git doesn't matter. The dialog editor does not talk to those at all. The dialog editor is its own thing, and it's separate from those two. So we go into here. We're in the new project. We open this in the file manager. Now we add an add-ons folder because that's how Godot talks to your add-ons. You have to name it very specifically. So it's add-ons. You go in, you copy it. There, dialog editor is in. Godot does have a thing where when you initialize the plugin, you should restart the project, to get it to load properly. I have not really found that makes a difference, but I am going to do it anyways. At least on my plugin. Other plugins it does make a difference. On mine, I haven't found it does anything special, but... So, I'm going to show you how to set up the UI first, and then the dialog editor, and then the code. So, main. I'm going to add a text direct. This is a fun trick I like doing for game jams and other things. When I don't have time to design a background, I will add a noise texture. And I will make some I add a gradient, and I choose like 2 colors. So I find like a light blue. I find a light blue or bluish purple looks kind of cool. Like this looks kind of cool. So next is a VBox container. So VBox. And now this has 2 portions. One for the actual dialogue text and the buttons, and the other half is going to be just a see-through spot, just to make sure the VBox doesn't take up everything. So we just set the alpha of this to 0. This one, and then we just add a second one called background color, and then we just set this to, I'm going to go with a gray, and I am going to make it partly transparent. Then under this one, we can add a HBox container. and let's add that in a margin container so that it stays margin containers at a margin of a certain number of pixels around the edges, so we don't have our text override it going off the edge of the screen. So we come over here. So I'm using tab to jump like that. So we go there. We have this. We can add in a text. Nope, it's called a label. Sorry. We add a label. Let's make it basically take up as much space as possible. And we're going to use word wrap. It's there. And because of that, we need to set a minimum size because it's in a container. So I want this to be half the height and half the width, and then minus 16 pixels because of the margin container. So that would be the x's in a default project is 152, so divide by 2 minus 16. Do the math inside the editor and then boom. So this would be 642 divided by 2 minus 16. So then we can add a VBox container just to take up the rest of the space. And this will have our buttons in it. So there. So text and buttons. So let's just add text. We can change the font size if we want. I'm going to do it. Let's go 24. That looks decent. Just name this text box. Okay, so we now have text. We have there. So we do need buttons to. It will have a value of 1 or 0, or we can have as many buttons as we need because the Dialog editor can have 100 different options for size. It can have 100 different options for a single input of text, so you need that as many buttons. So I'm going to show you how to create a button setup that goes incremental. So let's just set this up to be 150 by 50. You can make it say input button. Name it input button. Oops, I did not mean to save that full caps. There. So input button. That is it. Now we just need a script on it. So add a script. The script when the button is pressed, so we're just going to connect itself to it in a sort of loop. Let's go make a second signal. So the signal is going to be called input. I call it input. You could call it something else. So value int. Do you need export variable to figure out what the value it's going to be is? So call this input value. And it's also an int. I set this to 0 normally, and then on pressed we just we just take input and we emit it with our input value. So we can save this and we can go over here and we can add them in. So we can just duplicate it. So we can have this one be a value of 1 and this one not. So this is the top value and this is the bottom. I'm going to center these. So there, we have our UI set up. Let's talk about the Dialog editor itself. So when you start it, it does this. You just drag it up and then it's there. So let's start by adding in a new resource. So a dialog, hang on, where is it? Whoops, I'm spelling it wrong. Dialog path resource. Let's name this demo. Note, you can, so to save it, we will put it in here. And so we click the save and load button to load what's on it, but there's nothing, so we shouldn't do that. But there's also the save button, and that just saves it and writes all the data we have here, which is nothing at the moment. So let's add our first node. Note, if you put this file in here, but it's not actually there, it will create a brand new resource of the right type. So we drag out a node, or we click add node, whatever suits your fancy. And so you go in, so this is the main text box, and that is what will appear here. And then these are the two button. This is the button, so this is like the top button, because it corresponds to 0. And this is the bottom button, because it corresponds to 1. But I could add 10 of these, but I don't want to. I want 2, so I'm gonna set this to 2. But there's no more than 10 right now, because this is the maximum, so I could have 100. That's the maximum, giant maximum that I have, but that's just a hard-coded value I have, so I could type this to 100. 1,000. I accidentally typed 1,000, so I'm not going to count them all, but I did that earlier with smaller ones. So if I set 2, then it will stretch it really huge, because it was already stretched. So let me just drag this back up to a reasonable size for viewing. Okay, so let's just make this say, hi there. So you can say hi or bye. This is a non-linear dialog editor, so I'll show you how that works in just a second. So let's add a, are you sure you want to leave? And then we could type yes and just end it, or we could type no and make it literally come back to the start. And so we can then make it say, if you say hi, do you want a banana? And we can make it say it costs 5 gold. This has no relevance on code. This is just fun dialogue, so you can make it say yes. And now we get to the last value on this that I haven't talked about, the signal value. So there is a dialog reader node. I'll just add one in right now. These 2 nodes that are popping up as dialog nodes are the backend from the plugin, so don't mess with those. So we create a custom node, and it is we create the dialog reader, and we can quick load our demo. That won't work. So we can set up these. So again, these input slots. So this is the 0 slot. So this will correspond to the top value of all of these, and it will do that. But if there's only one value, it will correspond to the bottom one will actually hide itself and unhide. So the signal value is, we've got 2 signals, dialog done and an input signal. So the input signal gets emitted every time you read, and normally it just emits with nothing. But if you put a value like banana, you can, on when it gets received, you can have an if check and check the signals, or when you connect a signal, you can change the input value, just don't change the type. So you could name it something else. So so it will have bananas when you click yes, but only that one time. So yes, let's add a no. Let's add one less node just to showcase if there's only one node. Oops. So you can leave them blank, but I just like putting next to kind of showcase that you're supposed to do something else. So this dialog goes from the start to here. Goes from here to, if you click hi, to do you want a banana? No, are you sure you want to leave? Then it branches off from there. If you click no, then you go back to the start, and if you click yes, you end. If you click do you want a banana, it ends, but we can make it print something because we have access to it in code. And if you click no, it makes it go to okay, have a good day, and then gone. So we save this. Now to double check that it saves, you can double click on it and make sure that it changes from whatever it was. Normally don't check, but if it had nothing in it and then it all of a sudden has stuff, then that's just a good enough way to check. I would not mess with those values. It will break if you manually mess with the values, so don't mess with them. Demo, well, really don't mess with the arrays. So I could mess with these ones, but I just don't. It's not a good idea to mess with those. It's just risking it. So got the setup. We have it running. I just need a script to actually talk to the dialog reader and make it read, because it's not actually talking to these buttons. It just needs them to be a node with a variable called text. So if we have them as buttons which have text, but so it does expect an input, but that's just a variable we set here. So we need a func called read dialog, and we need a value in it. So we're going to be getting that value from the signal our buttons emit. So it can be a void. So in read that, okay, we do need two variables. So we need the dialog reader. So, and then we also need the text box, because the text box is the box we're going to should make it show what our text is. So there's really 3 steps, but 2 to read dialog. So first is set the dialog reader dot input to be equal an integer, and it will clamp it to whatever the highest number of input slots you have on that node. So it won't throw an error if you put it too high, but it won't give the expected result because you put a wrong thing. Then the dialog reader dot read next node. So now that you have an input, you can read the next one. And then text box dot text can be equal to dialog reader dot current node's text. There, that is what we need. Now I'm going to show you how to actually start reading and also hook up the buttons. But it did just occur to me that I forgot to show you this. So we full screen it. We can click this button and we can have the full screen dialog editor. That is just all I want to show you just then. So you can actually collapse this. So let's assign the variables quickly so that we don't forget to, and I'm going to maximize this. So on ready, so this particular program, just for the demo, I'm not going to have it have NPCs or anything. I'm just going to, when it starts reading, and when it stops, it stops. So to start reading any dialogue, you need to set the input to 0 on the dialog reader just to get past. Actually, you could technically put it higher, but I just put a 0 just to make sure it's the right value on the start node, because it's only got one connection, even though it doesn't look like it. It's using this one dot, so it goes straight into there to here. So we make sure that it reads the correct input value. And then the other thing we need is we're going to need these signals. So on connect, and then I'm going to connect the other one, but I'm also going to pick the same signal so that just so I don't have duplicates. So we can read dialog of type value, of input value. So just reading the input value that we set up like we wanted it to. So that's 2 steps. When the dialog is done, let's just close the application. So get tree.quit. And the other last step is we wanted to check for if this input signal is banana. So if signals is equal to, now I don't trust my spelling, so I just come and copy it out of here. It's simple enough to do. So copy it, and then let's print something. So print money for bananas. Get out of here. Oh, I forgot to add the whatever they're called. Those things. Okay, so this is ready. Let's show off what we've done. So we select the current scene. So it will, hi there. So let's say bye. I just want to show the nonlinear. So no, I don't want to leave. So circles. So it prints you have no money for bananas, get out of here. And now to showcase the one other thing I said. So if from here it will say, if you say no, then it will go to a dialog thing with only one slot. So the no second button should disappear. See? And then boom. This is the dialog editor. It can be used for NPCs, shops, visual novels, and even NPCs that if you pick the wrong dialog path, they emit a signal that when it's done turns them into an enemy. And they fight you. You can do all sorts of stuff. There's probably stuff I haven't even thought of. You can use it for cutscene dialogue. I've done that. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like.